Hi, I'm Brent Morrison from Lush Cannabis Company, and you're listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E Stories podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the show. We got a great episode today with Brent Morrison. Now, Brent Morrison is the owner and founder of Lush Cannabis Co. Lush Cannabis Co. is a biologically minded Canadian organic cannabis company. Now, a little bit about Brent. Originally from Cobourg, Ontario, he currently lives in Peterborough. He graduated from Western University with a BA in History and Philosophy and a Bachelor of Education. He later graduated from Trent University with honors in Bachelor of Science, specifically talking about cognitive psychology. In between those degrees, he decided to also spend time teaching in South Korea and then return to write course books for Oxford seminars before he decided to go back to school. Now, the goal was to actually pursue a PhD at UBC and graduate from Trent, but he decided to change his mind and decided to go to physiotherapy. Now, he didn't get in on his first application, so he decided to take a year off to travel throughout Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Europe before returning home and reapplying. Then, while on the waiting list for Queen's University, he was offered an opportunity to help open a Medicine Wheel Natural Healing, the second Indigenous cannabis dispensary in Canada, a year before cannabis was legalized. This was the beginning for his journey in the cannabis field, and later he turned down his acceptance to Queen's University to pursue work in the cannabis industry. Now, he left the medicinal wheel back in 2020 and began working on opening up his own shop, which we did back in 2022, and a second store opening up in February 2023. So this is going to be a very interesting show today, guys. We're going to be going into the cannabis space, which I don't think we've done before, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of the stories that Brent has, so sit back and absorb. But let's go back to now just the industry in general. So what is your take on the current cannabis industry right now, and where do you think it's going?
So on first of all, I want to say I'm very happy that it's been legalized. It's ridiculous to think that people were imprisoned for a plant that can't kill you. It's nuts. So kudos to whatever you think of Justin Trudeau. And I've heard the full gamut of things about him. But I'll give him this one, man. Well done. So it's great. And I do understand when you do something like this, a new industry, even with a background in teaching, you have to start strict, and then you can relax a bit, because if you start relaxed, there's no way to tighten back up. So the regulations were really, really strict, and now we're starting to see them. Okay, well, we can relax a little bit here and there. It's getting a little easier. Some of the challenges are in Ontario, all cannabis is goes through the OCS, the Ontario Cannabis Store. So if you're a producer, you grow your flower, you apply to the OCS to get a SKU for them to list it, and then all the stores can purchase that from you. So all of the stores buy from the same wholesale catalog at the same price. It's hard to differentiate yourself when that's the case. We might get some amazing flower. Well, as soon as we start to sell it, everybody's going to buy it. So that's a big challenge. And then adding to it, the OCS also offers you can buy from them on a retail level. So our sole distributor is also our competitor, and I understand when it started, they wanted to make sure all Ontarians had access to cannabis, and since there wouldn't be stores everywhere right away, they would deliver. That's fine, but that needs to wind
I was
down.
going to
I
say,
think
I'm
now
like,
there's enough stores
you're the
out there.
17th store in Peterborough. And I'm like, and OCS is still
Yeah,
selling?
everyone has
And it's
access.
like, I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I don't. And we've had, I've had communication with our OCS rep. Like there was a time back in the spring, we got a product in, and then it went on sale on the retail side of the OCS for less than we paid
Ooh.
wholesale. And I was like, what are you doing? You can't do this. Like, well, we just need to blow it out. I'm like, but we have to buy it from you, and I can't sell it that cheap. So what are you doing? You're crippling the industry that you've built. Um, so yeah, little things like that just really can't happen. So it'd be nice to see them step outside. And what I would like to see, we're beginning to see it. There's a side channel, not a side channel. That sounds shady. There's the flow through program is what it's called. So it's for retailers. It's a wholesale channel that you still go through the OCS, but you're more buying direct from the producer rather than the OCS buying a skid of product, storing it in a warehouse, and then distributing it. They're the go between. So we'll order a flow item, it'll go to the producer, and then they will ship it back through you. So it's a good way to get more products on the market that may not, you know, you have to have enough throughput to get a SKU on the OCS, just like with the LCBO. If you're a winemaker and you want to sell your wine, you need to be able to produce like thousands of bottles of wine for the LCBO to list you. Same with the OCS. So businesses now can experiment with newer products or have like smaller, like more craft oriented stuff and get that out to market. So I'm hoping that continues to grow as a channel, so we can have more direct relationships with the producers to get good small batch product on the market.
Okay. And is there any other common misconceptions about the whole industry itself that when you speak to people?
Totally. One is the understanding that, like, you know, we select the products that we buy. So some people think that we're run by the government. We're not. They're the regulatory body, and they do control the distribution. But like, it's produced by private people, sold to the government, and then sold back to private retailers. So the government's not directly involved in either of those things, other than as a regulatory figure. Um, Other things that people kind of have a misconception on, I think, is the margins that we operate under. They are very slim. It's not, and this is something for people to consider if you're looking to get into the industry as well, not just as a consumer. It's not as profitable as maybe you think, or as maybe it should be, because we have that the producer produces it, they sell it to the OCS marks it up, so they're taking a cut as a middleman, and then they sell it to the store. There's all of the like excise taxes and all the different things along the way that bump that wholesale price up. So when you go into a store and you see a half quarter, like 3.5 grams of cannabis for 40 some odd dollars or whatever. It seems like a lot, and it is, but understand the business is probably paid like 37 or $38 for that product that they're selling to you for 45 or 46. Um, so yeah, that's something for people to understand. And also, I mean, this is perhaps self-serving. There are some retailers that have come in that are um, heavily bankrolled, and they are just selling at essentially cost, with the intent of putting everyone out of business, and then they can price freely at that point.
Or like
And
to wait
I
it out
just from a
almost like they
more,
give up if a mom and pop wants to open like a gas
yeah,
station next to an Esso or a Petro, you know,
hmm
those ones can actually
if
they can drop their price a few cents and just wait them out because
exactly, exactly. And I know, like, I won't name different companies, but I know one that I had a friend that went to like an investors, they're looking for investment, and literally their goal was $3 million that they intended to operate in the red until that money was gone, in spaces where they could put everyone under, or that was their goal. One, I think that's not a good way to live. And it's a word of caution to consumers who are seeking, like, oh well, this place sells it for $21 and this guy's got it for 26. Yeah, it probably costs like 19.50 or $20 to buy it. And by supporting that, the ones that's just operating on those razor thin margins, you're in the long run probably hurting the whole industry, and those prices are going to come back up because they can't sustain at that level. So if they win, then they'll be your only choice in town, and they can charge
you
whatever
know,
they
you
want
want to
for
have
it.
a good blend of competition, right? You don't want, like you said, you don't want to be, you know, the 100th one out of the locations that are in this particular area, because it's
Mhm.
kind of hard. You want to find that sweet spot of like, you don't want there to be a monopoly, but you don't want there to be where you see on every single corner to the point where it's like, well, what differentiates them, right? Because we're going to get to that part as well. So, one last question before we hit our tips from
Mhm.
the pro segment here. So, in your journey, what has been your kind of your biggest failure, but also your biggest success so far?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. All right, let me think about that. So biggest, I'll try to think on the failure portion. Um, I would say maybe, not necessarily a failure, but a
Yeah.
challenge, I guess. Just um, that kind of aspect of the industry, like the all the regulations, all the costs involved. We had to raise capital to get the business going and all that. And it might have been a good idea to have more money. um,
Raise more
um,
capital. There we go.
yeah, yeah. And even with opening our second store, I won't call it a failure at all. I think it's in a good location, and that area, especially in the summertime, is really busy, and I think it'll be great. But it's a slog to get going in the early days in a saturated market. So the from opening the doors to like it's, it being self-sustaining is going to take some time. And I was aware of that, but maybe underestimated a little bit of like how long that might take. I'm anticipating by, when we open, I was hoping by March, which is, by the way, very fast for any business to be self-sustaining after a couple of months. But now we're looking at like maybe May, which again is still pretty good for most businesses, so I can't complain. But just, the level of competition out there is it's fierce. There's a lot of
Yeah,
people.
no, exactly. It's our biggest success.
Mm. Oh yes, well, good success. Honestly, I think it is the staff that we have, the team that we put together. We Our interview process, mostly, like, I have questions about cannabis and your history and your background. It's mostly vibes. I want to know, like, do you fit with our ethos, with our outlook on things? Are you somebody that I could work with for 8 hours a day? That's a big thing. Like, if you might be all knowledgeable in the world, and then if it's like, man, I'm annoyed 20 minutes into this interview, I probably not going to hire you. So that's a big thing, and just people that have, um, they have some interest in the growth of this field, not just our business, but in cannabis in general. Whether they use it or in whatever capacity, like, you got to love the plant. You have to understand, the things it can do, and just come on board and let's go on this adventure together. So, like, we're new, been open for just over a year. So anybody that comes and that works for us, they're there from the ground up, and I know it's cliche for businesses to say we're like a family, but, like, that's kind of how we treat it. And we've had people that have applied to work for us that they've said that to us, that they've heard that. So that feels good. Um, Even that right there, if you want to like summarize feeling of success, is that we have quite a few people that work at other cannabis stores applying to work for us, and I don't see our people applying to go work for other cannabis stores.
You're
So
doing
that's
something
something
right.
right.
Excellent.
Hey, you, do you need a voiceover? Well, look no farther. Northway Capital Group has your answer. Commercials and explainer videos, AVR and voicemail, health and wellness, corporate training and e-learning, announcements, documentaries, and biography. Contact us on social media or email us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. Now it's time for tips from the pro.
All right, tip from the pro segment here. So these people who want to get into a similar space like yours. So, like you talked about a little bit. So, what other expenses do you see that most people who are trying to get into the space probably don't know about?
So the biggest thing is understanding how the application and license process works. So you'll apply for your retail operations license. Likely you'll want to use a consultant for that. So that's going to be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. The license itself is $6,000 that you have to pay every couple of years. So bam, you're pushing 25 grand just to get your very first license. That's for you to be able to open a store, and that takes months to get that. Then you'll apply for your store authorization. In order to apply for the retail store authorization, you already have to have a location and a lease. So you're signing probably a 5-year commercial lease before you even apply to have a license to open a cannabis store. So be aware of that. There's risk. You might apply for a license, and for whatever reason you're denied. It could be maybe didn't look into it close enough, it's too close to a school, or there's some other reason why it can't be there, but you're stuck with that lease. So you've got to have that in mind, and that process again can take a couple of months. So from beginning of application to opening the doors, it's probably going to be at least a year that you're just money's going out and nothing's coming in. So you've got those expenses. You're paying that lease for those 6 months or whatever while you're waiting on your license. Your build out, you got to get all that ready, and then your initial stock order, like you have to order. There's no net 30 or anything like that. Like you order from the OCS, it comes, they take the money, and you're going to need 30, 40, $50,000 in stock to open with a reasonable number of SKUs. So there's a lot of outlay of money well before you even have a chance to bring any in. So just be
And can
ready for
you
that.
sell anything just online? So for those who might think, oh man, I don't know, could I maybe provide like an online operation? Is that even doable? Is that, because my next question was going to be more of like different niches within the cannabis space that maybe someone, like you said, might not have the 20, 30, 50K to start with, but they do want to get involved in is anything that they can try in the beginning, or not try, anything they should start with?
Yeah, so you do have to have a storefront. You have to have a brick and mortar location. You can do delivery. It has to be an employee that delivers it, so it has to be a paid employee from your company. So you can't just ship it through Canada Post or Pure Later or something like that. Um, you have that, but you do have that option. You could set up like a very small storefront with like limited, visual appeal, whatever. So people, it's not meant for people to come in and you just do delivery. You could set something like that up. What I expect to see, given the saturation of the market, I think we will see in some markets a degree of specialization. So there's a lot of SKUs and there's a growing number of SKUs. And right now, everybody carries everything because you want to be that one-stop shop. But I could see in the not so distant future, like a store that's dedicated to pre rolls, and they might have 300 different kinds of pre rolls, or a store that's dedicated to like your shatters and all the concentrates. They might carry a little bit of the other products, but you could focus in if you're in a big enough market where that's feasible. I could definitely see that being a path in that you could limit the scope of the products you carry, specialize in something, and that could kind of reduce that barrier to entry and make you a destination for like, oh wow, they have all of
Yeah,
this
so
thing.
it's like you niche down and then you can start to generalize if you want in the future once you've built
Hmm.
up all that extra capital from, let's say, all the sales you're currently making. So that's not a bad one because I think some people
Hmm.
like they might get overwhelmed with the idea of, trying to offer everything, right? And so if you're serving everybody, you're
Yes.
serving no one, right? So you want to try to narrow it down a
Hey,
bit. So
true.
it's
Agreed.
how
Agreed.
do you
Yeah.
educate how do you continue to stay on top of the cannabis industry? So if someone wants to get in, or like they want to know, how can I understand more about the cannabis side of it, where should I go? Do you have any websites or any memberships to market intelligence stuff that you use? What do you use?
So yeah, there's I read up quite a bit, and this goes back to like medicinal days, and I use some of the skills that I developed like in my degree in like cognitive neuroscience at Trent. Just reading scientific papers. So for myself, I'm very fluent in that area. So that's how I keep on top of things. Then there's a bunch of resources. The OCS does have a learning portal for anybody who has. You have to have you have to be a retailer or whatever to have access to it. But they have a fair bit of. I'm actually impressed with the quality of information coming from there. In terms of regulations, there's Health Canada and the AGCO are the ones that you'll want to look into. And learning about the plant, I'll drop one name of a place called the Trichome Institute. That's Trichome Institute. They're based out of Colorado, and they're essentially were like one of the first like sort of cannabis universities. And going back to like 2017, 2018, 2019, I watched a ton of videos and follow them quite closely. They give really good information about cannabis, about the plant. It's sometimes geared towards the market in Colorado, so they might talk about like
Yeah.
operating there. But the stuff you learn about the plant and the products is very valuable. So that's something I showed
Perfect.
them.
All
Yeah.
right. And what is your best strategy on dealing with difficult clients? I was going to say also staff, but I think you said your family of staff has actually been pretty good so far. But how do you generally deal with difficult people in general?
Yeah, and I will say, maybe it's just the nature of cannabis. Um, we don't have that many difficult people. We do have some, but it's like I used to work at Chapters, and come Christmas time, even people buying books can be difficult. Um, but in the cannabis space, we don't have that much. The biggest things to watch for are like if somebody's intoxicated, just like going to the LCBO. If you're drunk or whatever. And we've had just a handful of people that have come in and maybe we didn't have what they wanted or whatever, and they've given some pushback. We're clearly upset by it. So the main thing in any situation like that, if the customer comes in, regardless of what's going on, like they're upset for a reason that is valid to them. Now you might think it's silly that they're acting this way or whatever, but you have to connect with them on their level. At least try to get into the headspace of like, why is this person upset about this thing? And then if you can come to some understanding of that and like kind of see it from their perspective, that'll help you come up with a solution that might be able to like de-escalate the situation, hopefully resolve it in a way that's satisfactory to both parties, but at least maybe like step it down a bit, like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. I'm sorry that happened, or I can't do anything about it, or I can do something about it, whatever it is. But you got to put yourself in the headspace of
So
the other
my
person.
question then, are you allowed to, like you mentioned that whole thing, if someone's, intoxicated, or let's say they're actually really high, are you allowed to still sell your products to them? Or is there, that whole in the bar thing, right? Like the bartenders can cut you off at a specific limit.
Mm.
Is that same thing in a retail operations for cannabis?
Yes, yes. So in order to sell cannabis, you have to get your CANSEL, CANNSELL, which is essentially smart serve for weed. So it's a lot of the same. Um, education, I guess, on intoxication and things like that, just like at a bar. So if somebody comes in, and it doesn't have to be like they could be intoxicated on
Yeah.
on whatever. It doesn't have to be like, well, they're drunk, but they're not high in weed, so they can buy some weed. Like, no, yeah, you have to draw that line. So it is a bit of a judgment call. Like they give you some information in the course about how to detect that, and you kind of have to like you don't want to mistakenly label somebody as intoxicated, and who knows, maybe they have a neurological condition that causes them to slur their speech or something. So you need to be aware of all the different things that can go into somebody behaving in a way that appears as though they're intoxicated. But certainly, yeah, you're legally responsible to not sell to
All
someone who
right.
is
Perfect.
intoxicated or
Of course.
underage, of course.
Last question before we hit to the fun stuff,
Yeah.
the rapid fire round. But so, last question is, how do you balance your work life? Like any business owner, they're going to be working 80 hours a day, almost 80 hours a week. Sorry, and it's going to be crazy hours. How do you find that balance?
Try. In the early days when you first open, you don't get to make that call. Like for the first 2 months, I had every other Sunday off, and that was it. And then I added in Wednesdays, so it's not even a great weekend. I get like every Wednesday and every other Sunday off, but that's just what worked with the business flow. And then once we got on our feet, we got some staff hired. Like making sure that, one, if you are hiring people, you hire good, trustworthy people that you can step away and have a clear mind. It's really, really hard at first, and it takes a while to get that. But I had, I guess, almost a year into the business. I went away just after Christmas. There, went to Toronto with some friends, with Chris, and I didn't think about the store at all while I was away. I was like, I got home like that. That's good.
And the store is still
So
running,
that
even
really
better.
gave me, and the store's still running. Yep, didn't burn down. Everything's fine. I was like, oh, that's good peace of mind. But you need to take that time for yourself. Not just for your own like stability and well-being and all of that, those are the most important things, but also in terms of operating the business, you need to be able to step back and just decompress and stop focusing on dealing with immediate problems, and like, okay, now you can have a more strategic view. You can just like, okay, where do we want to go, what are we doing? And if you're caught up in the frothy turmoil of day to day, you don't get that long view. So you need to be able to step back and like do things that you like to do and just clear your head. It's super important, and that's, yeah, definitely something that it's a struggle to allow yourself that, but you got to
Oh,
make sure
great.
you
Good
do.
to hear. Hey, do you need an error-free website? Do you need transcription that's accurate and on time? Would you like to remove noise from your video or audio recording? Do you need a spokesperson for your business? If so, we can help. At Northway Capital Group, we are happy to announce that we are now providing website testing services, audio transcriptions, and audio cleanup, as well as spokesperson services. We would love to help you on your next project. Contact us for more information at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
Now it's time for the rapid fire round.
All right, now it's the rapid fire round. We're just wrapping up now. It's almost been an hour, if you can hard to believe. It's been flying by really quickly. So we'll try to answer these
That's
really
fly.
quick questions here. So, all right, Brent, what did the 15-year-old self think you'd be doing right now?
It is very funny you say that, because I often tell people like my path of like I was going to be a teacher, a psychologist, a physiotherapist, and now I sell weed, and I'm like, high school Brent would be so proud.
High school.
Never ever thought I'd be doing this. At 15, I was probably starting to think that I would be a teacher, or an author. I do like writing, and maybe someday I'll be in a position where I can just dedicate myself to that. But yeah, I probably would have been like an electrician, a teacher, or a writer, and not a
All
legalized
right,
weed seller. Did not see
excellent.
that coming.
How about the sandwich? I don't know if you heard about some episodes. What would you have on your sandwich, and what would it be called?
Whew. Okay, well, I'm vegetarian. I have been for 7 years now. So let's see. This is a real
Mhm.
sandwich we're making, right? Okay. I'm gonna start with maybe like a nice lightly toasted sourdough. I'm gonna have some goat cheese, some roasted red peppers, maybe a marinated and grilled portobello mushroom, a little bit of onion, and then a sweet with a little bit of heat, kind of like a smoky barbecue sauce, and I'll make it sort of like a
And
burger
what would it be
sandwich.
called?
And I'm gonna call that. Ooh, um, I should have thought of this. Hmm. The I was trying to do a play on portobello for the mushroom and portable. So the portable. portable sandwich.
Put
That's
it on a
awful.
shirt.
Um,
Put it on the portable sandwich. There we go.
I do have, if I can just quickly, a friend of mine had a pizza shop across the road from me called Pizza Bodega. Fantastic pizza. I'm very sad he closed down. But he made a dill pickle pizza that I thought was great. And one time I asked him, he had these candied jalapenos. And I'm like, hey, man, can you add those on there with a little, add that little bit of sweetness? And it was so good, he called it the
Very
Pickle Brent. So I do have a pizza named
wow.
after me.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. What is the weirdest gift you've ever received?
Hmm. um, Weirdest gift. So yeah, okay, I do have that. On my birthday this past year, my friend Shelby, shout out Shelby Moore, um, she bought me a bag of dicks, and it was literally a burlap bag full of little dicks. Um, she thought that was hilarious. My plan is I shouldn't reveal this, but I'm just going to slowly sneak those. I've done it with two of them, but I have a bag of dicks, so I'll go to people's houses and I'll just like stick one in a plant in their house and see if they find it.
Wow.
Definitely the weirdest gift.
Weirdest gift. I mean, I had a weird gift scenario, but it wasn't like that. It's that I was at my aunt and uncle in law's house when my wife and I were just getting ready to get married.
Mhm,
I just happened to, I was speaking to one of my wife's sister because they got married the year before, and they said, "Oh, we got this gift." I said,
mhm,
"What is it?" It was a parrot wine holder. Now, they didn't really. It wasn't the prettiest thing, right? So they're like,
mhm.
they were appreciative of the gift, but at the same time, it's like, you know. And I remember at the same aunt and uncle
Nice.
in law's house, we were just happened to scroll in the basement. I just happened to see it. Happened to look something in a bag, and it was a monkey wine holder. And they were getting, and this our wedding was coming up. So I'm thinking, you ever catch your parents or anyone kind of like you see the gift that you're going to be getting ahead of time by accident? It wasn't intentional.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay. So then I told my
Oh
wife,
no.
Mrs. K, I'm like, I think we're going to get a monkey wine holder. And then by the time we got married, they ended up giving us like $250, right? But at the
Oh.
same time, though, Brent, you were
Mhm.
happy but disappointed at the same time because you're appreciative of the 250.
Because you're
I was
mentally
prepared for the
prepared.
monkey,
Yeah.
and we didn't get the monkey.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That is a bit
Yeah.
disappointing. I would
Next
agree.
question here:
Yeah.
would you rather hunt and kill your own food or eat Taco Bell for a year?
Oh. Now you've asked a vegetarian
I
this
was
one.
gonna say I
So,
didn't know you're a
um,
vegetarian, and I mean, if
yeah.
it was me, I would probably either if I had to hunt and kill my own thing, I'd be a vegetarian, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. If I can hunt and kill
Uh,
my own like
Mushrooms,
tomatoes and
yeah,
peppers and root vegetables and mushrooms, I'll do that. 'Cause that's a hard one. Like, no offense to Taco Bell, but you're actually making me strongly reconsider just eating vegetables. That I might have to hunt and kill my own meat rather than eat the Taco Bell. But I guess if those are my only options and I can't hunt the veggies, I'd have to go to Taco Bell. And do they even have veggie
tortilla
options?
chips,
I don't know.
guacamolee.
I guess yeah, some chips
You
with
can have
nacho
meatless
cheese. Yeah,
stuff,
all
right?
right.
But but it's
Yeah,
probably
I
gonna be
guess
very processed, so probably not so much. But
yeah. I don't know. I didn't know how you'd survive on a year of Taco
yeah,
Bell.
it
Probably
would be
not well.
very tough. I don't know if I could do it. Like I can't consciously stare at an animal that I'm about to take its life just for so I can eat. I'm like, I can't do it.
Hmm.
I cannot do it. I'm like, I'll just hunt and stuff myself. I'll just be a vegetarian. I can't do it. Um,
That that's how I came.
yeah,
If
of
I can
course.
just how I came to this. I'd gone back and forth, and from an ecological and ethical standpoint, vegetarianism's always kind of appealed to me. But the nail in the coffin, so to speak, was while I was traveling in Vietnam. We were sitting out in our little balcony having a coffee in the morning. We are in Sapa in the north of Vietnam, and every morning they would bring in pigs to the place across the road and slaughter them
Oh
like
my
there.
god.
You'd hear like, and I was like, I can't. If I can't even watch that, how can I participate in
Yeah,
eating
I
it?
mean,
I'm like, you know what? Yeah,
yeah, I
I'm
used to have
out.
a pet pig in the Philippines, which I did not. And I was there for
Ah.
vacation, and I remember feeding this kid like
Hmm.
frutella, this pig, and I was there for a couple of
Yeah.
weeks, and then I found out from my parents later that after we left, I think maybe a couple of weeks after we left, they cooked it. I was like,
Oh no, so
yeah, it's
sad.
like I don't know if I can do it, right?
That was my
Yeah,
friend.
but
Yeah, yeah.
last question here: what is your theme song and why? So that song hits. You're walking down the street, that song hits. People know Brent's coming.
Oh, I don't know if they know it's coming. For Pink Floyd by Post Malone. Um, I don't know if that's a good theme song. I guess if you listen to lyrical content, I mean, we all want to be rock stars. Hmm. I'll go with that. I'll go with Rockstar by Post
Nice.
Malone.
Nice.
Good track.
So, any other
Yeah.
advice you want to say to the aspiring entrepreneur, whether it's going to be in your industry or anything else?
Come into it with more than just a business attitude or mindset. Something that we studied at Medicine Wheel that is called social entrepreneurship, and it's entrepreneurship with a social mindset. So get into whatever the industry, whatever field it is, but have a place in your heart and your mind for like what are you going to do with this business that is a benefit to the society and the people around you. And if you have that, that will steer you in the right direction, both from like an internal, like moral and ethically, you'll feel good, but it'll help your business, I think, ultimately be more successful because you're not just in it to extract dollars from the people that come in the door. You're looking to have a circulation of money where it comes in and now you can do something good with it. So come in with that mindset, and I think if more people did that, more businesses did that, one, our society would be better, and I think you'll be a happier business owner if that's what
Oh,
you're
that's
looking to
great.
do.
Good advice. And last final plug, where can people reach you?
So you can look us up on Instagram at Lush Cannabis Co. Or there's lushcannabisco.ptbo for the Peterborough location, or lushcannabisco.cavan for the Cavan location. You can shoot me an email directly at brent@lushcannabis.ca if you're so inclined. Otherwise, look us up online at www.lushcannabis.ca, and that's
All
our
right.
website.
Well, thanks for being on the show, Brent. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a great chat.
Do you have a small business story to share? The S.M.E Stories podcast is looking for entrepreneurs to share their tales of success, failure, and everything. If you're interested in being a guest on our show or know someone would be a great fit, please contact us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. That's northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.